Hey everybody, welcome once again. We're running a little bit behind tonight, but that's okay. Welcome again live to our IncrediChat here from IncrediCon in the Hudson Valley. Wonderful to see everybody here tonight. And tonight we have a wonderful guest star, a good friend of ours, somebody who has really helped get. I would say, he's kind of I don't want to say father, grandfather, the person behind it, but without some of his guidance and inspiration, our IncrediCons would not have occurred. So please welcome to tonight's show, the one and only Alex Simmons.
That's right. I'm the here I am.
There he is. There he is. Hello, Alex.
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
I am doing well. Sorry, I didn't know what to call you, the grandfather or the father.
That's okay. I mean, as long as you don't call me late for dinner is a phrase. I think that
yes.
used a lot. No, I mean, Mike, you and I met. I don't even remember how many years ago.
About 10 or 11 years ago, at least.
Yeah, you came and you volunteered for one of the KCC events, and it was it was the year that we were supposed to do it at our usual spot, was Bronx Community College. But the last minute they had an event and we got bumped, so we wound up at this little church not too far from where I live in the Bronx, and you came right down there, rolled up your sleeves, and jumped right in. So that's you can say whatever you want as long as it's polite.
Well, I mean, there was definitely a story. Oh, look, here's Caleb. So Alex.
Hey, Caleb, how are you? Long time no see.
Watching.
Now he's gone. Okay.
There he goes.
I have that wonderful effect on children. Yeah.
Well, he's like, Alex. I'm like, you've met Alex many times.
Yes. It's him.
So we met through Kids Comic-Con, and gosh, so that was like 10 years ago. So because you've been doing Kids, we'll start with that. How many years have you been doing Kids Comic-Con? What is Kids Comic-Con for our audience?
Okay, so Kids Comic-Con, it started out as an idea I had, it must be 20 years ago, when I was doing a lot more Comic-Cons with my own products, with Blackjack, the comic book series I created about an African-American soldier of fortune. I was also doing Race Against Time, which is an adventure series with a young kid and his uncle. And I was doing a little bit of freelance writing in the industry, not as much then as I have been since. But either way, I was doing conventions, and I was noticing they were like really shrinking the amount of things they had for kids and families. It was like really becoming much more what they considered adult entertainment, a lot more risque stuff. And hey, I like pretty ladies, and I'll even go so far as to say scantily clad pretty ladies are attractive.
This is it's 8:30.
Yeah, it's 8:30. Well, I also don't get that, descriptive. The bottom line is, at that time, we had a lot of really attractive women who wore less and less, and some of them had done their own comics, and they had very sort of explicit PR photographs that they were selling at the table. They had the explicit comics. There's a lot of violent comics that were coming out at that time as well, having nothing to do with the ladies. And this was all next to Felix the Cat, Scooby Doo, other kids-related material. And I was just saying, no, you should have a section either for this kind of material or for the kids. And a couple of cons let me do that. One of them was, at that point, Wizard had just taken over the Chicago Con. They let me come and do what I call the Kids Corner. And I did it with Kurt Busiek and James Brown, not the singer, the colorist of comics, right? The godfather of color, James Brown, and a few other people. They did panels for the kids. They taught workshops. We set all that up. And it was a great success. And the idea was people could leave their young ones with us, maybe a chaperone, and go, shop for whatever that explicit stuff they wanted and come back. And the kids had just learned something and gotten more into comics. But after a while, the cons didn't want us to do it anymore. They said, oh, no, we could use this space for something that's going to pay us money. So that was when I met Gene Adams, and I'm speeding it up. I met Eugene Adams, who was working in a major position as a director of educational outreach at Bronx Community College. And through a series of conversations, he brought me in to start doing some workshops and things with students at middle schools and high schools they were connected to. And then we just kept talking and developing, and I put together a panel discussion for him one day that the school thought, okay, maybe 20 kids will show up, college kids. They'll show up, and maybe a teacher or two. We had over 250 people jammed into this conference room because we had 6 professional comic book artists, and not even the superstars. they're talking about how they do this as a business, as an art form, and the kids, the college students were eating it up. And there is an art department there, but they were hearing it from almost like ground troops. This is what it's like out there in the business. This is what it's like to pursue it. So the school began to see, you know, there's real interest, and Gene already knew this. So he said, what do you want to do next? And I said, well, you know, really would like to do a Comic-Con for family and kids. And he said, okay, how do we do it? And that's pretty much where it started, 2007, I think it was. And there were other things happening, which I won't go into the whole big story, but New York Comic-Con, that which we think of now as this huge thing, was a little thing. And it just started, like, I think it started in 2006. So 2007, a couple of their people came to see our event and thought, this is what, they actually said this in front of witnesses, so I'm not making this up. They said, this is what our kids' day should look like. But they would do Sunday after 12 o'clock for kids under 12.
Yeah.
So I got pulled into a team of other people from the industry who designed their following year's Kids' Day event. And we worked together to do that for another year after that, I think maybe 1 or 2 years. And by this point, KCC was now an ongoing thing.
That was probably
never supposed to be. Excuse me?
New York Comic-Con was probably around 2013, 2014. When Kids Comic-Con ran that whole room.
Well, yeah. The funny thing was, the person who brought us in to help design their Kids' Day back in 2007 and 8, rather, wasn't with them after that. And then some other people came in. They asked some questions of me. And then one year they finally said, look, we're going to have a family room. And because they've expanded their space in the Javits Center. We want to have a kids thing. We're going to have a family room. Could you and your people run that? And we said, sure. And we did that. Again, I'm condensing the adventure. We did that for 2 years. And we had all kinds of, I mean, just great compliments and things, because our people, as you know, Mike, they're not there, you know, so they can get next to whatever celebrity it is that they want. They don't treat the kids like, you know, secondary attendees.
Yeah.
We're there for them. We're there for the family and the kids. We're there to make it a great, memorable experience for them, a fun experience. We try and teach them things, you know, entertaining things, but yet creative and educational things. And, you know, you brought in the folks from Sesame Street, Leslie Carrera-Rudolph, Noel McNeil, and here you got puppeteers who also, they love their audience. They're there for the right reasons. Then we had John Gallagher, we had Jamal Eigel and Jamar Nicholas, and we had a number of writers and illustrators who also were there for the kids.
Jerry Kraft, who just got a movie deal, it looks like,
a
TV deal.
He got a movie deal, but prior to that, I mean, Jerry did a graphic novel, New Kids, by the way, great graphic novel, go get it. New Kids, Jerry Kraft. This was a story he had in his head when I first met him over 20 years ago. And because with some experience he lived. And now here he is, like just a couple of years ago, he gets a deal to do the graphic novel, to tell that story that he's lived with all these years.
Yeah.
And it wins a Newbery Award. It's the first graphic novel to win a Newbery Award. But these are the kind of people that we were working with, you know, who brought their A game to the family and the kids. And so for a couple of years, we were doing that for New York Comic-Con in their family space.
Yeah.
And then, you know, just, you know, to be quite transparent without being mean, somewhere in the corporate arena, the mindset went, we have our own people. They can do this. We don't need to bring in these other people. And it's not like they were paying us to do it. You know? So it wasn't like we're laying out too much money for this. It was free. We got in free. Our people got in free. We were happy to be there. Boom. So they went and they started doing it themselves. And for 3 years thereafter, I would run into patrons who knew us from the 2 years we ran it and said, you guys aren't running that anymore, are you? I said, well,
yeah,
no, we're not.
I do remember that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, and I'll just put it blunt because I've said this, you know, many times. If you do not believe in it, don't bother.
Yeah.
If you're going to have a con and the con is about the comic books and the special guests, the superstars, you know, that's fine if that's your thing. But if you're going to put in a family or kids area or arena or event, do it like you mean it. Otherwise, you throw people in a corner. You could care less. You don't announce any of the event. You don't even say they're there. And people who find us love it, but the people who don't, they're not, oh, I didn't know there was a thing here for the kids. Oh, well, what do I know? So ultimately, I think that anybody who's really into it, do it and do it well to the best of your ability. And otherwise, skip it. Skip it altogether.
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly, like you mentioned too, a lot about what, and I mean, I noticed this right away when I joined with Kids Comic Con. Like there really is like a sense of family there, and like you mentioned a bunch of the people who we have worked with over the years. Like, I mean, let's just start off by saying our buddy here who's not with us tonight, Grazia, Michael Grazia. I met him through Kids Comic Con, and then some of the other folks we've had on our IncrediChats, we've met through Kids Comic Con, like Noel McNeil and Leslie Carrera Rudolph, and there's so many people, and other people who will get on here at some point too. Paul Castiglia.
I'll tell you something. I don't mean to. Well, I do mean to interrupt you. I want to support what you're saying. Not only have we met these wonderful artists who have continued the relationship with us over the years. It's not like we're filling their bank accounts. But the other thing is the people that we've brought something positive into their lives.
Absolutely.
Two things stand out in my mind. One was you got us into IncrediCon.
Yes.
We had, for folks who are not aware, there's the Kids Comic Con event we do once a year, and then we had what we call KCC on the road. So we would take a small troupe of our artists, puppeteers, and whatever, and we would go create a family kids experience at somebody else's comic convention. And again, we're not getting rich from this at all, but we would go do this. So IncrediCon in upstate New York, Mike got us
Mohegan Sun.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So come and gamble, have a good time with comics. We're there, and I think it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. Yeah, it was a 3-day event, and we're there Saturday early afternoon, and I get an announcement or a message from the gentleman who's running it, who says there's a young boy who's going through the con now with his mother, and he's about 6 years old at that point, and he's just gotten out of the hospital for chemo treatment because he's been battling cancer for almost a year. It says he's going to be coming through here. If he comes in, please do something nice for him. Maybe give him a little something. I'm thinking, you're preaching to the choir here. That's what we do, right? So it was like maybe 2 hours later that he comes in. It's a cute, sweet little guy with his mom. And he hardly spoke to anybody. He seemed so like tired, but he wanted to look around. And like most parents will do, oh, here's this person. Why don't you talk to, say your name. And I say, yeah, Mom, it's cool. It's cool. Just relax. He doesn't know me. Just let him look around. Well, yes, I said, Mom, it's okay. It's okay. Because she wants him to have a good time. I said, yeah, relax. We're good. We're good here, right? And so he would look, and he was looking at a comic, and I pointed to the comic and said, here, open it up. And he looked at it, and I said, by the way, if you want any comic that's on this table that you want, you can have. He says, okay, well, fine. So he doesn't do it. He looks at it. Finally, he's looking at this one. I said, would you like that one? He still hasn't spoken to me, right? I said, would you like that one? He says, yeah. He shakes his head. So I said, that's yours. I said, maybe, you and your parents can read it together later or whatever. Then Leslie takes him over and she shows him the puppets and then Noel, and he makes the circuit of the room and everybody is just wonderful.
Diana was with us?
Yeah, Diana was there too. It was Leslie, Diana. No, I'm sorry. It was Diana, Leslie, and then Noel was over on the far side because there was a stage event that we had going on there. Noel had been teaching. So anyway, the young man made the circle. We got an email from his mother about a week later.
Yeah.
And she tells us what a wonderful time he had. She says that, because he did say something to me. I don't remember. It was just a few words. She says, I was the only one he spoke to the entire time he was there at the convention.
There you go.
He took the comic home, and the very next morning, the first thing he did was he asked his father to read it to him.
There you
so
go.
Dad sat there reading it, and he was really into it. And she said, thank you so much for letting him be a child. I said, that's what we do. So, things like that. We have a few of those stories in our repertoire. Things like that reinforce who we really are. And so I'm happy. 14 years, by the way. That's how long we've been doing. 14 years.
Yeah. That is quite a long time of that, and I mean, and it's still going strong this year. Obviously, with the whole pandemic, there was the live online thing. We'll talk about that where people can find that too.
Oh, well, it's on our Facebook page. So bottom line, what we did was, and Paul Castiglia, good old Paul, because Paul Castiglia was in the comic book business. I met Paul through Archie when I did work with Archie. Paul was with Archie for years as a writer, editor, and so forth. And then he had some other creative jobs. And then he just within the past 2 years moved out to California to do some stuff out there. But Paul was a big part of KCC. So this year, we're looking at the pandemic. We had to, cancel KCC live and in person because of it. And I was bummed about that for a while. I'm thinking, it just feels wrong somehow. And then the more I was hearing about kids being, obviously sequestered at home, virtual schooling, very little social life, blah, blah. I said, there's got to be something we can do. And naturally, it eventually came to mind, we'll do a virtual KCC. And we could pre-record everything, just upload it, but I wanted some interaction. So we talked to our high-profile, super energized individuals, and that was you. We're doing the interviews with Veronica Taylor and your buddy Marty. Thank you, Marty.
Legendary.
Veronica, who did, excuse me?
I'm saying no, Marty, the legendary Marty Gross.
Oh, the legendary Marty, who does, Courage the Cowardly Dog. And Veronica Taylor, who did Ash in Pokemon for 8 years. They're both great people, but you had that with them. Paul had a panel he put together. And then we had Leslie Carrera-Rudolph and we had Noel McNeil, both doing puppetry stuff. And
they hosted it pretty much.
Excuse me?
They hosted it, and I know between...
well, that was the thing. They kept the live part going in between some of the other live components and some of the pre-recorded components. And we put together what we call the KCC Saturday Morning Special. And we laid it all out, and so there was, when it was on Facebook, you came to the Facebook Live, there it was, and you could have moments of where you just, you could go to a video and watch that, a workshop or whatever, or you could just watch the interactions between Leslie and Noel, we had Mark Mariano, we had a few, Ellen Stedfeld, and people who did live workshops. It was just wonderful. And we did for 2 hours, a little over, but basically 2 hours. And then we said, we've got all this footage, it's all recorded. Why not leave it evergreen? That way, kids, families could always go and check something out. So it's on our Facebook page. And it's there. People can go to kidscomiccon.com. I'm sorry, Facebook/KidsComicCon. You can go there and see it. And we also have a website. We haven't crossed it over. We haven't loaded it all over to the website yet. But, the Facebook page is definitely where it is now. But, what you were saying is we could have skipped this year, absolutely. But to me, when you know why you do what you do, you try and find ways around the obstacles. And to me, what we do has always been about the kids and giving them something that they can have a good time with, they can enjoy, they can learn from, and not doing it just because we can't be physically there didn't seem like enough of an excuse.
Absolutely.
And we were able to do what we did.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think it truly was. I mean, it was high energy. There was a lot going on.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I mean, listen. That was, dare we say, as all this technology is going on, we were in the pioneer days of Zoom and all that stuff. Now everybody's an expert on Zoom. But
or they pass themselves on fast. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you saying?
I was going to say those were the early days of Zoom, 4 or 5 months ago.
I find it funny because it's Zoom. I'd done a little of it before all this happened. And then once it happened, because I also teach screenwriting at the New York Film Academy. So a lot of their students were sequestered either in their places here in New York, or they went back to whatever state they were from. And then eventually some of the students, because it's an international school, went back to their various countries. But the school wanted to maintain the classes that they could. So from March through this month, as a matter of fact, I've been teaching virtual screenwriting courses on Zoom. So sometimes I have 7 or 8 students looking at me, and other times I have 15 to 25. And it's interesting, and they're in different parts of the world, So you get sort of exposed to the pulse of what's happening in the world. And at the same time, I get an education because I see it as a give and take.
But you get to see everything that's going on in the world, with everything that's going on. There's many things happening in these last 6 months, but through the lens of several different people.
Yeah, several different people's cultures and whatever. And it's the arts too, because I mean, we're talking about comics and Kids Comic Con and IncrediCon and all that, but it's really also about this component of the arts. And when things happen in the world, it is usually the artists who reflect it in some way, shape, or form. It's reflected in their particular medium. And so we have, through the things that we do, you and I, that we're familiar with, we work in the comic book, graphic novel, puppetry arena, and live entertainment. We do events. But, I'm also working with people who do it through film. And they write scripts and they film things. And I teach the screenwriting. So I'm helping these people. And it's not just, when I say students, people may be thinking I'm talking specifically about, late teens, early 20s. But the course spans ages and genders and lifestyle choices. So I could be talking 20 or 16 to 60, literally, in the same class sometimes. And everybody is reflecting some piece of the world experience they've had, trying to figure out, how do I write this? How do I tell this story? How do I visualize it? Because I'm going to film it. What do people say? There's all of these things. And so literally anything that I see on almost a daily basis is about how the creative process serves us as a society.
Yeah. Now I want to ask you a question. I certainly want to sit and talk about all your writing, but you bring up a good thing as we're sitting here talking about the students that you're working with, and just as a writer yourself going forward. So, and we'll talk more about it. You've written Scooby Doo. You've written Archie stories. So, do you think the Archie stories that are being written now, we're going to see the Archie gang, for instance, they're all going to be wearing masks and social distancing in the comics, because I mean, look, I'm goofing about Archie, of course, but as we look, we're all home, we're watching television and stuff, and we're watching old shows and current shows and stuff like that. But it's going to be interesting to see how entertainment takes this and kind of rides with it. Definitely, I think a show that I'm really interested in seeing when they do return is The Connors, because they're a very blue collar family who's always struggling. And how does this situation that we're going through in the world now, this pandemic, affect this family who's already always trying to make ends meet? So that's going to be interesting. But and there's a lot of shows that are like that, kind of based in reality thing. But for instance, the Marvel movies, or the shows on the CW, like The Flash or Black Lightning or Riverdale. Are we going to see? Do you think we'll see those characters reflecting what's happening in the world today in that aspect? There's going to be other topics that we're going to see.
That's an interesting question, and I think it really has a lot to do with one of two things, and I don't really know which is going to have the higher priority. I think it's going to depend on the team of people who are producing the show.
Yeah.
And what they want to say or do, where they think, this is the direction we need to go in. It's also going to do with whether or not, and I guess maybe it comes down again to the same thing, the people involved, whether or not they're going to say, our job is to distract people, is to make things seem normal again, as opposed to enlighten or to chronicle. So ultimately, somebody's got to make a decision about where the money is, because they don't want to turn off their audience. They don't want to lose an audience. So how much do they want to make a statement? How much do they want to say, look, this is what's happening now, but life goes on and our heroes are still doing this, that, and the other. It's like 24, okay? 24, I think, was as successful, the series was as successful as it was, because it took off right at the time that we were really butt deep or chest deep in the terrorist phenomena. 9/11 had happened. Things were blowing up in the Middle East a lot. I don't mean to be light about it. I'm just saying concretely, terrorism was all around us. And here's short little Jack Bauer kicking butts and taking names and saving the world. And so, and from what we would call an anti-hero realistic point of view and still waving the flag. So they could take on, and a number of action shows did this. They took on the themes of terrorism, you know, and they went toe to toe with it. Some of those shows, I can remember an episode of Hawaii Five-0 and a couple of others, when they took it on, either they were fighting them or occasionally there would just be a dialogue moment where one of them reflected on how the world now was different for the child of theirs that they're raising. Like, you know, the line where it says, my child will never be able to do the things that I did, blah, 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 blah. So once again, the mindset of the producers, the writers, I think that's going to be key. I think obviously the station, the studio is going to have something to say about it. I would be more concerned. I'll put it this way. There are some shows I think could handle what you're talking about and do it well, whether they did it dramatically.
Like something like the Connors, but like that, like I'm thinking about, you know, like we'll use, for example, like The Flash, you know, like he's gonna have the regular mask on and then this mask on and all these beautiful looking people, you know, everybody's going to be sitting on screen covered up like that. Like, it's just interesting.
It's interesting if they do it, you know, and again, it's really a lot. I mean, I've just seen the standards that are being established for film sets and working with crews and the food catering to sets, either filming indoors or outdoors. I just went through 25 pages, reading 25 pages of the standards for that. And it's going to be complicated. It's going to be very complicated. It's going to take a while. If a vaccine doesn't pop up real soon, and hopefully one that's real and works and all that, I'm looking at, in my head, I'm envisioning a year at least of people doing all kinds of gymnastics to get around the obvious.
Yeah.
And again, as what I was going to say is, I think, again, it's a show. It depends on the show. Some shows I think should stay away from it because I don't think they're produced or written well enough to handle it. I just think it'll be a tragedy. I think they'll screw it up, and whatever audience they have, they're going to lose them. I think, like you said, the Connors, maybe, I know that what's his name is coming back to SVU. Maybe a police procedural like that. You know, they could be very realistic about it. But there's some shows that people watch, like The Neighbors, they watch to sort of get away from, you know, or deal with racism, but from a humorous standpoint or whatever. So I don't know. I really don't know, but I do think it has a lot to do with the team behind it.
Yeah, no, because I mean, it's really going to be interesting. And then again, just like we're saying, in print, what that's going to look like too, because novels and comics and things like that, like, how are people going to?
Well, I think the other thing is, I think, and I could be wrong. I'm not a guru of Hollywood, but let us just think about it this way. The way I see it, you had shows that were hot ticket items. They had a major fan base and everything, and they've been in hiatus during this thing. So the moment productions start to crank up, they're going to want to get those things first thing in there, get up so we can get those episodes. You know, we don't lose any more people or whatever. I think right behind that will be whatever shows that can hold their own. You know, they were doing all right. Let's maybe out of 10, we'll take these 2 or 3. And we'll keep those going. So you got the absolute winners. You got ones that, you know, they were doing okay, and I think we can work with that. And after that, and whatever breather they're going to need, they're going to go, okay, of the shows that were greenlit, which ones do we think are absolute shoo-ins? We'll take that, right? Okay, because we're rolling dice here, and we got very little window of time. We can't shoot the way we used to and rush things.
Yeah.
So to me, we've already discussed probably a year or 2, year and a half at least, right? Before anything new makes it up to the door, let alone through the door.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You know? So I think Hollywood's going to slow down. I think film production is going to slow down. Maybe not, you know, drastically to where they're not doing anything, but they have to work out a lot of how do we do this now.
Well, I mean, certainly, and again, just thinking about it. Like we're in August, and normally right now they're getting all hyped up for the fall television season, and TV's going to start in September, October, and ain't gonna be nothing new to watch. And
I think we're going to see reruns. I think we're going to see reruns. I think we're going to see animation. I think we're going to see tricks that they're going to use. Like, for instance, there's certain sitcoms that you only need 2 or 3 people in a room at a time, so that's fine. I think in terms of certain crowd scenes, CGI, special effects. You can do that. That's that's fine. If you're going to do, I mean, if they were doing Lord of the Ring now, okay, most of the bad guys could be CGI. They're not there anymore. Or green screen the whole army into the shot. I think they're going to find technological ways to get around certain things, and they're going to pray that the stars want to come back and be in an environment that's going to be, dicey, and again, slow baby steps. Yeah. So again, it's a good time to be in animation, folks.
Oh, well, I mean, and the thing is, I think, like you said, it's gonna be 2 years, or at least a year or 2 years. This is the time, and we've said this a billion times on here. I'm sure as a writer, you know this. There's no better time than right now to be creating. You're home.
It's very truly.
Right? Well, for the most part, I mean, it's the weather's nice now, but during those first few months, it was cold. Everybody was home. Nobody knew what was going on. So there's probably a lot of content that we haven't even heard about yet that was created in that time period. So it's going to be interesting to see.
More than likely. And then there was whatever was created just prior.
Yeah.
So that's backlog of what already existed, and then there's whatever new stuff or stuff that was commissioned that's sitting there, and then after that. So again, it's going to be, what do we do? What are we cutting back on? What do we get the funding to do? What's the budget going to allow? I mean, we have people who've experienced, major losses financially, and it's really going to be about what can we afford to do? What a sponsor is going to be doing? How's that going to work? There's a lot of things to consider. I think one of the things that's most important is you don't lose hope, and you plan for, how do I succeed, rather than, oh my God, there's no chance. There's no point in that. There's no point in that. Much of my time has been, even with working with the students, like I said, different parts of the world. But it's, some kids say, well, what's the point of writing my script now? I may not get to film it. I said, I have the same attitude I had about what you just said as I had when people were saying, what if they press the bomb? When I was a teenager, what if you press the button and the bomb goes off and we're all toast? I said, yeah, that's right. What if they do? But what if they don't? You've been sitting here in a hole, sucking your thumb, fearful that one day they're going to do it, and 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 years goes by, which is what happened. 25 years have now gone by. So to me, it's you prepare for how I get through this, and when I get through this, what do I have? What will I do? So I talked to the kids about, I brought up the thing in spec scripts. I said, before it was pandemic and all this, you still had, fresh writers either established or just breaking in, doing spec scripts, writing a full script that they're not going to get paid for necessarily. They're hoping that the talent that they have will shine through in this script. They'll show it to the right people, and they'll get a gig. Either someone will want to do their movie, like a Matt Damon, they want to wind up doing that, or that it'll get them in the door, and someone say, well, we don't want to do this, but from your writing, how about you do this? So that's, you put in the time, you have faith, and you work always towards a positive goal. It's hard, but that's what it takes.
Yeah. So now let's go back to, since we're talking about writing, tell us, we started off talking about Kids Comic-Con. You started about going about your writing. So you were going to Comic-Cons, you were talking about Blackjack, and what was the other one? I can't, and I know I have an issue.
Yeah.
That's it?
I did Blackjack and Race Against Time.
Race Against Time, that's it.
Yeah, you'll be fine. It's all right. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yes.
Blackjack and Race Against Time were independent projects that I worked on. Blackjack I created and wrote, and then eventually other people that I know, pros and so forth, got involved with it. So when I was doing the comics, I worked with Jamal Igle, I worked with Joe Bennett, I worked with Chris Ryan, I worked with Chris Gold, Stephen Harris, and a number of other people in the business, and it's been really cool. Race Against Time I worked on specifically with Jamal and James Brown, again, Godfather of Color, not Godfather of Soul. and a couple of other people. Is Sheehan did my graphic design, so we put those out. But I also got to do work with DC. So I worked with Denny O'Neil, who just passed, and just taking a moment, Denny. To the people in the industry, many people know Denny. They worked with him, they had experience with him. The people outside the industry, what Denny did was he created a platform on which the superheroes that I had grown up with could take on social issues. Sure, he created, but he really helped develop that platform. Neil Adams, they really started doing stories along those lines, so that our heroes could step a little bit, like you were talking about, a little while ago, could step into the world that really existed and still be Batman and still be Green Lantern and still be these superheroes. But now we could also deal with some social issues and things that were going on. And that was Denny's strength. But his other strength, aside from being a gentleman, was being willing to turn around and bring other people up, share his experience, share his time, his talents with them, and help us get better at what we do. And so, we've lost a good one, and I'm really sorry he's gone. But, I remember him, and many of us do. But yeah, so Denny, I met through DC. I got to work with him on Batman. I wrote Batman Orpheus Rising. Orpheus was a character I created, a black superhero in the Batman universe. I worked with, oh God, just I started to say his name, Mike's gonna hate me. He's gonna hate me. Okay. Anyway, I'll come up with his name towards the end. But I worked with Mike and Andy Helfer, and I worked with a few other people at DC for Superman. I did a 2-part Superman story, which they didn't publish, by the way. I don't know if that was me or them, but either way, they didn't. It did get, one issue did get illustrated, so maybe it wasn't me. And then
it's in the archive somewhere.
Excuse me?
It's in the archive somewhere.
Well, I have copies of the pages that were done, so I will always hold on to those because the artist who did them did a nice job. Joan Hilty was my editor on Scooby Doo, and I had a nice run with that, and I got to work with Joe Staten, who's a great illustrator. I worked with him on that for a while. And then right after that, I sort of wormed my way into Archie comics. And so working with Mike Pellerito, I said it right, Mike Pellerito, and some of the people at Archie, I started writing, I think the first thing I did for him was a little short story with Dan Parent. We did a one-shot together. But then after that, I did Archie's World Tour, which was a 5-part miniseries, which took the gang on literally a world tour and a spy adventure. And then I started doing Jughead. I did a couple of Jughead. I did a Jughead miniseries. I did a number of other issues. I did the another 5-parter of the new. It's not called the new. It was called Archie. New Kids. Yeah, actually it was.
It wasn't New Kids on the Block. New Kids in the School.
No, but that was a fun title we used for it. But it really and I think they retitled it something like Invasion of the New Kids or something like that. But it was the storyline was a high school is closed down in Riverdale due to the budgetary problems, and so the teachers and the students from this other high school have to be divided and scattered to other high schools in Riverdale, and like 50 new kids and 6 or 7 new teachers come to Archie's school, and I focused on 5 or 6 of those that sort of challenge the status quo. So that was fun, and I got to create some new characters, some of which are still being used. And then I did an Obama Palin story with Archie, which was truly fun. They asked me, can you come up with a story where Obama and Sarah Palin both show up in Riverdale? And I went, yeah, I could. And the first one I came up with, they didn't want me to do. I guess it was a little bit too intense, but I came with an environmental storyline and something that dealt with media manipulation. Yes, I did media manipulation in an Archie story with the then president of the United States and an ex-running mate, adversary. And that was fun. And that was a 2-issue job. So I did a lot of stuff with Archie, and I had a very good time with them. And then I just moved on to work on other projects.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just going back to Archie and the New Kids, like the stuff that you and Dan did in it. Like you said, there are so many new characters in there. But again, talking about diversity in the Archie world, and you could maybe speak to that a little bit too, because you took one of their characters that they've had sitting around for years, and like you really breathed some new life into him.
Yes, good old Chuck Layton. Yeah, I give a lot of, I work with Victor Gorlick, who another person who's no longer with us. Yes, they say Americans use the word love too easily, too quickly, but I have to say that there's certain people who are lovable. You know, you just enjoy who they are. And Victor was one of those people. And Victor had been with Archie for 50 some odd years as an editor, right? 50 plus years. And so talking to him, there was so much history just in his throwaway comments. So I had a lot of good times with Victor. But Victor and Mike Pellerito, Mike was an editor there at the time, and now he's a VP, would ask me sometimes, can you do this, can you do that, can you come up with such and such? Chuck Clayton was a black character that they created for the Archie comics in the 70s, because I'm not saying this was their thinking, but in the 70s, everybody had one. Yeah, Mod Squad had.
There were two in Riverdale, come on.
Riverdale had Chuck Clayton. Yeah, they occasionally had
and Nancy
Clayton. So I guess they were interchangeable.
Don't forget Nancy either. Come on.
Excuse me?
Nancy.
Yeah, but it was Chuck and Nancy because he had to have a girlfriend because he couldn't date any. Anyway, that's not important. Yeah. But I was saying the late 60s, early 70s, a lot of TV shows and series had one. So they had Chuck for the high school aspect of it. Chuck Clayton's father, Coach Clayton, had been in there earlier. And the thing is, Archie comics, I'm not making excuses, I'm just saying how it is. Archie comics, a lot of their stories are short ones. They're like 6 pages or sometimes 2 or 4 pages. So ultimately, if Chuck showed up, it was for a panel or 2 or 3. Occasionally, you know, there was not a drive to keep him in the forefront. And so it was like 2007, 2008, something like that. I pitched some ideas to Archie Comics, and I've told this story a bunch of times, so, you know, it's on the record already. I went in looking for a writing job, period. I just wanted to do some freelance writing for him. And I was talking to Mike, and we had a good talk, and I said, gee, it looks like I'm going to get some work from him. And Mike says, just a minute. He goes to talk to Victor, and then Victor and him talk to somebody else. And next thing I know, I'm asked to sit in the conference room just to meet with a couple of people. I said, okay, fine. Figuring, okay, another editor or two. Maybe I'll get some work on another series, right? And suddenly it's Victor and Mike, and it's one of the owners of the company, and it's their distribution manager, and we're sitting around a conference table in the Archie conference room, which is full of Archie memorabilia. There's racks of comics and toys and all this stuff. We're surrounded by it. And they asked me, the head of the company at the time asked me, said, why do people think Archie is white bread? And I remember thinking, he is legitimately asking me this question. And I will say this point blank, there are any number of ways that a person of color, in my case, a black person, can react to a white person asking what seems to us like a really obvious question. You know, you can wonder, are you messing with me? You can have that attitude. You can laugh in their face. You can choose not to answer it because you feel like they're setting you up, like we're in Get Out. You know, you're not sure what's going to happen. But yeah, you know, what have I got to lose except maybe the chance to write for them? Okay, I can live with that. I said, well, you know, you gotta seriously look around us. And I said, your 6 lead characters are all white. He says, yeah, but we've got, and he named the Japanese character they had, the East Indian character they had.
Japanese. I didn't even know there was a Japanese character in Archie.
Yeah, it's a girl. I can't remember her name right now, but they had her. They had an East Indian boy, Raj, right? And they had Chuck. So he named 3 different types of, you know, multiracial, cultural, whatever you want to call it, characters they had. And I said, well, yeah, you have one of each. I said, that's one. I said, but pick up some of your books. You know, we had plenty to pull from. I said, open up to any page. I said, even in the cafeteria shots, the background people, they're all white. You can't keep doing that and then expect people to go, oh, they're okay, they're diverse because they have one East Indian. Is he the only one in town? Where does he live? Is there just his mother and father and maybe siblings? Or is there a community, like happens in many towns and cities, where people of a particular culture feel more comfortable saying, okay, this is our neighborhood, but we can go out into the rest of the town? I said, where is that in Riverdale? And, you know, and to his credit, to everyone's credit, they went, seriously, well, what can we do about that? Okay, now again, as a Black person, there's ways of responding to that. But I'm just seeing it as an opportunity to express myself, you know, and I'm not mad at him. You know, you ask the question, here comes the answer, as professionally and as diplomatically as I can put it. So I said, you know, the least you can do is put them into the background shots. The most you can do is start to bring some of these characters forward and build up the community or the family units around them. So it's not an isolated moment in one issue every 6 to 9 to 10 months, you know. And to their credit again, yes, I got to do a lot of writing for them almost immediately. So that was fun. Chuck Clayton, they came to me at one point and they said, I think it was after I did the world tour and I'd done a couple of solo issues. They said, you know, we have Chuck here, right? And Chuck he's the artist in town. He's in the comics. He wants to be an illustrator when he grows up. He's the go-to guy everybody goes to when they want some drawings done and all that. You know, and we know you, Alex, teach comics and after-school programs and things like that. You have the Comic-Con. Would you be able to come up with some stories about Chuck doing that very thing? And I said, some stories, I've got hundreds of them, you know, based on some of my experiences. So they said, okay. I said, you want an issue? No, you know, what would you do? So I pitched I think we wound up with four or five issues, a mini story, and it was fun. And each issue could stand alone, but they did tie together. And they were a lot of the stories were based on experiences I had working with children in all kinds of places here in New York, in Florida, and so forth. And some of the background things that I had come across, like a very talented 10-year-old child who loves drawing and making up crazy, like Dr. Seuss-like characters, whose parents kept saying, don't do that, that's silly, that's stupid. You know, and so I was able to put that into a story. I was able to talk a little bit about the fact that there were Black comic book illustrators back in the 50s. Whatever happened to some of those? So these were things I could weave into the stories, just like the Palin and Obama story. There are little things I can weave into them that speak to incidents, but also not stepping on the flavor, the tone, the feel of an Archie story. Just giving it a little more depth. You know, and then when they did Riverdale, they took off. They went, okay, let's go for it.
And you and I have talked about that. Like they made Chuck, not a positive person out there.
Not my favorite move on their part, and I understand they did Josie when Josie became Black, and that's nice. But a Black male in a show that did become popular, but certainly was going to attract a lot of attention. The first thing out of the gate, he's a jerk. It's like that's not who he was in the comics. Yeah. So somewhere along the line, somebody went, yeah, let's do that with him. Why?
Well, certainly, and I don't know if you saw this, and we just talk about Riverdale for a second, in regards to the diversity. I mean, I think the Josie and the Pussycats thing is pretty cool, what they did with her. I think that's a neat new direction. But
wasn't that something they did in the comics before? Which came first? I forget. Because
no.
Valerie and Joe. That's what Valerie dated Archie. That's what.
That was Dan. That was all Dan.
Dan also gave us the color.
Yeah, and that first season of Riverdale, they actually had that Valerie and Archie relationship for like in a couple of episodes too. So they took that right from Dan Parent.
I hope they got some points.
I know a while ago I guess he got to visit that. But the other thing too, and this was recently in the news, and I forget what. And I watched the show too. The girl who plays Cheryl Blossom's girlfriend, but oh my gosh, now but it's not because Ginger Lopez was on Katie Keene. Now that they changed Ginger Lopez's character around. I don't know if you watch Katie. If you watch Katie Keene, no. Ginger Lopez was Jorge Lopez, and he was a drag queen.
Oh, okay.
So they use that. Oh my God, I can't think of the character's name. Tony Topaz. Tony Topaz. So Tony Topaz is dating Cheryl Blossom, and I think she's a Latina girl. I'm not sure what the actress's nationality is, but she called out the producers of Riverdale about diversity and not really showcasing people of color.
Wow.
And this was in the news, gosh, maybe like 2 or 3 months ago.
Well, that's nice to know. I mean, again, I don't know any of the powers behind it. My connection with all of that stopped at Archie, and at the company, the comic book company, and the reality that I embraced because of my own personal and professional experience is once the movies take on a character or a concept, unless you have some phenomenal ironclad control or contract, don't expect it to look anything or very much like what you created for your book or your novel.
Of course.
It's an adaptation, period, clean and simple. I learned that from, I don't know, people may not know this name, but Leslie Charteris, the writer back from the late 20s, early 30s, created a character called the Saint. And he did it in British. He did a series of novellas about the adventure of this character. It's like a Doc Savage, he had cronies that worked with him and all that. And he was like a Robin Hood among thieves. He would steal from thieves. But anyway, the way he wrote the stories, they were brutal. They were slick, but they were brutal. The Saint was not nice. And they decided to do a movie, and the Americans did the movie. They toned him down a bit. And then that movie was so popular that they hired an actor named George Saunders to play the character in a string of the B movies. And now he's like a dilettante, and he wasn't dangerous at all. And Charteris kept complaining about, what are you doing to my character? What are you doing to my character? As he took the check and went to the bank. And eventually Roger Moore is brought on to do the TV series. That runs for like 8 seasons. And he's complaining about that as he took the check and went to the bank. So to me, the reality was, okay, don't expect it to look like, and if you're really pissed off, then you pull an Alan Moore and you say, I'm out, that's it, I have nothing more to do with this, don't put my name on anything, give the money to whoever else helping with the project, but you guys suck and you've ruined my project. Otherwise, take the check, go to the bank, shut up. And so my thing to me was like Blackjack, there's lines I will not cross, and you cannot cross with this character. And if you insist on it, then we don't have a deal. That's not me being full of myself. This is me trying to protect the integrity of the character that I created and the concept of that character, because I had reasons for that. But I think that with Archie, which was so established for generations, it was a connector between grandparents and parents and children, nieces, and it had this arc that was intergenerational. I was concerned with what they were doing with Riverdale on TV simply because I get why you're doing it. It may not be my cup of tea, but hey, I know there's an audience for that. But don't throw out everything else that you've established. Because this is what is really, I've watched it for 6-7 years in different parts of the country, as well as in 2 other countries. I watched how this iconic character connected people. And I just didn't want to see that, tossed down the toilet. And it doesn't look like it has been. I still hear more talking about the comics than I do about the TV show.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, and it's what's interesting too is that you have young people who are watching Archie whose parents or grandparents grew up with the Archie characters, and I'm sure some of these adults are like, "Oh, this is Archie, but this is my Archie."
Yeah,
this is the Archie for the new generation,
It is, and again, more power to him. I mean, John Goldwater, the head of the company, early in the game when he took over, he made a very clear business decision, and I totally get it because I saw what was happening before. It's a business, and in order for Archie the company to not just vanish like dust in the wind, it has to be making money. It has to be grabbing attention. When Michael Uslan, the producer of the Batman movies, wrote some Archies, and he wrote Archie Marries Betty, Archie Marries Veronica. That was his concept, and he wrote that for them. People, suddenly everybody wanted to talk about Archie comics. They were being interviewed on Good Morning America, and all these articles were appearing all over the country. Forget the comic book industry magazines. Regular publications, regular news commentators had to pull Victor down to the studio. We're doing all kinds of write-ups on a character in a book series that almost all the publications prior to that, even within the comic book industry, had been ignoring. So, okay, so Archie Marries Betty, Archie Marries Veronica just turned up the heat. Suddenly the spotlights were all on them. And, you know, John's attitude was, again, as a businessman, is we got to keep the light on us because this is what's bringing us money and attention. And so, you know, Kevin Keller came out of that time period. I got to write a couple of things out of that time period. And the deal for the TV series was made during that time period. And so, again, Archie, the company, is still here. And what is it, 1930 something? It was created,
like 78 years ago, right? Yeah.
It's real. We are in, well, the people, including those of us in it, want to admit it or embrace the reality. It's a business. It's a business of art, and we may love the creative end of it. We may love the work that we do. We may love, here we are, Americans using that word again. We may love the characters, you know, they're our characters. I grew up with this. You see yourself sitting under the blanket at night with a flashlight reading because you're supposed to be asleep. All of that's very real. But in the end, if the money isn't coming in, people aren't getting paid, that's going to go away. And that's what a lot of these publishers have to deal with. There's no more Richie Rich. There's no more Little Lulu. You know, there's a lot of the stuff that you and I know either from firsthand or reprints. The stuff doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even like last week, I was sitting there. I was telling you earlier before we came on, I was talking with our friend Joe Bev, and like him and I were talking about like some of those Hanna-Barbera really pumps out Scooby Doo, which not even Hanna-Barbera, Warner Brothers pumps out Scooby Doo at this point. You know? But and you've written some of those, and there is a whole crew of Hanna-Barbera characters, which, you know, 20, 30 years ago, you know, we're like big names, household names. Kids knew who Yogi Bear and the Flintstones and all them were. Now it's like, who? You know, some of the kids know them, but
I was talking to somebody the other day who reminded me that this month, I think it's August, is Bugs Bunny's 80th birthday.
Yes.
You know, I knew Bugs Bunny from television, and I even knew some of the early 1940s cartoons, you know, because on television they would show them, you know. But then my Bugs Bunny I grew up with had his own TV show, and it was done, you know, a little bit more simplistic illustrations. Roadrunner, Bugs Bunny, Speedy Gonzales. Those were characters I grew up, along with the ones you mentioned from Hanna-Barbera, which was Flintstones, was it the Flintstones, Quick Draw McGraw,
Cat,
Killer Gorilla, you know, these are all things that were out there. Johnny Quest, you know, which is still got some fan base in there. But ultimately, there was a lot more comics and cartoons for young people and for children and teenagers to absorb and have those moments, and we could become attached to them. But again, in the end, it's a business. And as much as I feel is necessary, both ethically and monetarily, to develop more diversity, and not just, you know, racially, but gender-wise and so forth, I think we have to look at what characters can we create and then bring quality to the table. Do it right so that it builds, or they build their fan base and people are buying, because if they don't buy, it's gone. You know.
Well, and then going back to Scooby, like there's some formula that has worked for 50 years with Scooby, and they've tried several ones. And again, going and taking things to the drawing table, like you saw DC did a couple of years ago. They did the more adult, the Scooby Apocalypse, which it was like a very and they like adultified. Well, I'll make up a word there. A lot of the Hanna-Barbera brands.
They did that with the Flintstones too, which was actually kind of interesting.
That was actually a good book.
Yeah, that was actually kind of interesting. And they actually had a Batman Elmer Fudd crossover that I thought couldn't have worked, but it was actually kind of interesting.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, I mean, again, to do something for gimmick's sake, I think is a problem. I think if you're going to do something and you're doing a what if. What if we cross over and we mash this with that? Do it well.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and then you have a shot. One of the flashbacks to the 70s that I'm constantly seeing popping up is those big books they did at one point where Superman and Spider-Man crossed over.
Yes.
And then there was one with Muhammad Ali and Superman.
Yep.
You know, those are things like, you know, a lot of people who are in their teens or early 20s know about those two books. You know, and I don't know if they know about, I can't remember who it was. There was a Batman, I think it was Batman and Captain America crossover. There was a couple of those.
Maybe it was Batman and the Hulk. For some reason, I think it was the Hulk.
That's scary. But, you know, but anyway, Batman doesn't back down. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
The reality, again, is if you do it in a way, I'm not saying it has to be great literature, but do a quality job. You know, tell a good story. Have some great shots and great scenes in there. And if you're doing it to appeal to the audience of the day, okay, don't talk down to them, but you also don't have to go so over the top that it becomes crap.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, and that's the thing is now too. There's so many avenues for content, whether it be streaming online, streaming on, you know, Netflix, Hulu, whatever streaming service, and then like the billion channels that are on there. Like there is just such an overflow. So things.
Oh God, yeah, and there's a new channel, Popcorn, that's free. I'm going, okay, let's see how that works out.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah,
come on. There's too much, and like even I think about my young son, and he switches his flavor of the week every day. There's always something new because there's always something new to discover.
Yeah, you know, we mourn the loss of things like Cartoon Network for certain reasons, but again, it's just because it's not all centralized anymore. You know, you actually do have to hop around to find. Like they did a new version of Carmen Sandiego, and I actually watched like 4 or 5 of the episodes. You know, not a big fan of it, but once again, they thought this out. There's actually some interesting moments in it. I like some of the artwork. So these people cared. They actually put the work in and they care, and you know, more power to them.
Nice. So we're coming down to the end of our hour here. So I guess let's. And I mean, we have a good group of people watching us. I'll just run over some of the names. I'm looking here.
You know?
I'm sorry.
Does anybody have any questions?
Well, Kim Lucio, who we remember from up in Massachusetts, he loves and misses us. And indie movies will be on the rise, he said. But I mean, I'm just looking. Kathy Swalve, I hope I didn't say your name wrong. She's watching us. Josh Hankmeyer, Alan Angevine, Montel Guzman. Let me just go over to the other feed here.
Kathy, I'm sorry, for all you old people, that's a Romper Room reference there. Okay.
Amy O'Hare, Mary Dumas. You know, there's a whole bunch of people. Tim Clark was watching us earlier. So yeah, no, and there's Tim. I don't know if you know Tim Clark. Tim Clark, he's another friend of ours at IncrediCon. He built some of the characters for Dark Crystal and Uncle Matt.
Cool.
Ragnarok. He was with us at our show at a couple of our shows in Middletown and Poughkeepsie here. Nice. He built the Sector toys. Remember, like the bugs that you put on your the ant and the boglins. So plug for Tim if you're watching. Go check out Boglins by Tim Clark. But that's what we do here. That's the whole point of this whole IncrediChat and IncrediCon. We're promoting everybody's fun stuff. But anyways, before we wrap up, definitely like and you see on the bottom here, I was able to finally get the scroll.
Oh yeah, the crawls going by. Yes.
So we have
Alex Simmons at. Yes, you're very good, very nice. I like that little DivCon going by. The stock quotations for this week are
or it's a weather report.
You wanted to ask me something.
Yeah. So what are you working on now? I mean, I'm sure you're working on some more blackjack, but what else are you working on during this whole?
I'm working on a project for First Second. You know, things are again. Everybody's doing this dance with people's health and things. I'm fine, thank you very much. But I understand that there's some other people that had some issues, and so now everybody's coming back to normal. So that's good. So I'm working on a project for them. I just got word. I don't know if I'm supposed to be able to talk about this. Let me put it this way. I'm going to be doing a short story, prose, not illustrated, about a particular character of prominence who is also of the African diaspora. And that will be part of an anthology that's due out, I think it's early part of next year. So I'm very excited about that. And I am launching a new writing course because I teach writing too. I consult, I coach, I'm working with a screenwriter on one of her screenplays,
Oh, nice.
but I'm also launching a mystery writing boot camp that I'm doing. It's going to start on the 19th. It's just a 3-day event. But people who want to sign up, I'll make sure that you go to my page on Facebook. You go to Alex Simmons on Facebook, and I'll have a link there. I'm putting that up there tonight, as a matter of fact. But I'm going to be doing that. So I'm teaching mystery writing. And I've got a couple of other things in the wind. Another project I'm not supposed to speak about yet, but I hope to be talking about. And I'm sorry, I was hoping I'd be able to bring it up, both of them, tonight. But I'm still I still got a gag order on.
Well, people can go look at the website.
It's nice to have things to look forward to.
Absolutely. And do you think? I know. Ideally, April-ish, there'll be another Kids Comic-Con, but maybe doing something in the fall. Have you thought about doing?
Oh yeah, I've absolutely thought about doing something in the fall for a lot of reasons, and one of them is whether we're quote unquote back to normal or not. There's still a lot of kids and families that are dealing with difficult situations now. There are companies and jobs that have disappeared, and children need something. And in particular, you and I have done stuff with Ronald McDonald House. And their kids.
Talk a little bit about what you do with Ronald McDonald House, because you do a lot with them. Mention that. Give them a good plug.
Okay, so aside from the fact that I adore the people at Ronald McDonald House, Nellie, and some of the others, Jennifer. I mean, it's just great people there.
Yeah.
Real superheroes are those kids. The real superheroes are the kids. For those of you who don't know what Ronald McDonald House is, it has nothing to do with the clown, really. It's not like he's running around there taking care of people. Ronald McDonald House is a facility. There's several of them throughout the country. It's a facility that the corporation of Ronald McDonald, gave sort of the jumpstart to, and through funding and things like that, they're maintained. They are, in effect, safe places, hotels, living spaces for families whose children are undergoing extreme cancer care. They have to go through either surgery or chemo or whatever. And the New York one that we do a lot of work with, they have families that come in from all over the world. The house that they have, the building that they have, up until the pandemic, housed 90 families.
Wow.
And the lower level is a playroom area with all kinds. That's like a wonderland with playroom stuff for the kids, different ages, even band material, guitars and things for like the teenagers or the siblings of the younger ones. The older ones can stay and do things there. Video, computer rooms for doing great stuff. And then they have living quarters for each family, one little space that the family, and a communal kitchen that's kept very clean, and a dining area. So the families were able to commune, cook meals for their, themselves, sometimes share. It's a very holistic environment until the pandemic. And then they had to pare down. So out of 90 families that were there, after about a month or so, it was down to 60 and then down to 30.
Oh, wow.
60 families that needed that space in order to have their children receive the kind of care that they needed had to go elsewhere. And in many cases, back home. You light a candle for those. For the families that are there, they have to stay in their rooms. They can't mingle, really, because of the distancing. But also remember, children who are people going through, chemo, your immune system is shot. So they would be even more susceptible. So they're living a very isolated. So what Ronald McDonald House did was they established a YouTube channel, and people like, KCC and others have created content for that channel, workshops and crafts things and funny stuff, so that the kids could turn on to the channel and see things that would help distract them or keep them active while they're sequestered. But we've done over the past few years with Paul Castiglia and Diana Lito and Leslie and Noel and Jamal Eigel, and I'm trying to name Sean Atkinson, Mark Mariano, Elizabeth Sheehan. I'm saying this so you guys understand how many wonderful people would come together to work with the children on special days like street fairs or what they call the Hero Day, and just for a couple of hours or for 4 or 5 hours, just do everything possible to make the day wonderful for these kids. And as I said, you think of them as, oh, you poor kids, you're going through this and that, and you see them come back, and some of them are drained and tired, but then they start to get into the play, they get into the comics, you know, and you see them light up. And some of them, you know, shaved heads and all that, and they're just treating you like, hey, it's another day in the neighborhood and it's fun. And you're going, how are you doing this? So to me, they're inspiring to us as much as we're trying to share and give them something. You know, they give me hope. So that's a lot of what we've done with them over the years. You know, all things going well, we will continue to do that. And I think if anybody out there is interested, you can definitely contact me if you want to do something comic book related with them. You know, I don't know if we have our address down there, but if you go to the KCC webpage, you can leave a, webpage or the Facebook page, you can leave a comment and say, I'd like to do something, you know, for Ronald McDonald. What can I do? And we'll work that out. I think that's enough on that, yeah. Because I could go, that's enough.
No, I mean, I bet that's
one more thing. The 75th Archie anniversary comic book was based on a story. I wrote the story. It was a story that involved Ronald McDonald House. So there you go.
That's right. I do remember. I'm just going to pull up the thing. And you know, speaking about art, again, going back to Archie, like I remember the time I was there. I was able to go with you guys one time to Ronald McDonald House. It was for one of their street fairs. Like I remember you showing me like inside there the setup that Archie did because like art like you mentioned like I want to say I guess you want to call it a playroom or whatever it is that you want to call it.
Leading down to the playroom and the walls in the playroom. John Goldwater and Archie Comics, the company, arranged to have artists, you know, people who do this for a living, the walls, come in and they did this beautiful mural of Archie characters down the steps that go down to the playroom area and then along the wall down there. That was one of their gifts to the facility.
Nice, and I just put up on the bottom there. Facebook page as well.
Yeah, you know, again, you know, through us, a lot of comic artists have done stuff for people who are struggling. We did what we call Read to Recovery, where we donated comic books and graphic novels to Puerto Rico and Mexico and Florida when they were having the storms and the earthquakes. You know, there's a young man who unfortunately was in the hospital. He's undergoing hospice, dying from cancer. And he loved the Power Rangers. And so his mother reached out to me and was telling me about what was happening. And I reached out to some artists and I said, look, this is what's happening. Could you do a drawing of a Power Ranger? Email it to me. I'll get it sent to his mom. She'll print it out, put it up around his bed. And there are like 9 different drawings. I know there's only 6 Rangers, but it's like 9 or 10 different drawings came in. And we shot them to the mom, and she put them up around the wall. And it made his last few days that much better. So what we do, going back to creative arts, comics, puppetry, all these things for kids and families, you know, it means more than just a few bucks. You know, it means a lot more to a lot of people. And there's 100 million stories you haven't heard, but just know it's more than just a piece of entertainment. And for some of us, it's a mission.
And I just want to also plug in there too. I remember seeing from you guys too. The last I think it was the last event that you had, but the Winter Soldier was there with you guys.
Yeah, that's true. That was a Ronald McDonald House Superhero Day last year, 2019. The actor who plays the Winter Soldier. Yeah, and it's a fun thing too. It's a really good thing when a visiting celebrity turns out to be a really good person.
Yeah.
Where kids are concerned. You know, it's one thing that, oh God, you played this. That's really cool. And you stand and go, yeah, that's right, kid. That's not so much fun. But when they really get down with the kids, they're really having a good time and they're being genuine with them, that's a beautiful thing. I will tell you a quick story. I know you're getting ready to go, but I'll do this one quick story. Remember the little guy I mentioned, Dylan?
Dylan, yeah.
Okay. 2 years later, about 2 years later, KCC is doing our spot at AwesomeCon. That was in January. Ace Con. You're right. Ace, not Awesome. Ace Comic Con. And it was here in New York City, and I think it was in Long Island. And Henry Cavill and the actress who plays Wonder Woman, the actress who played Aquaman, and another, I think it was Cyborg, were there for photo ops. And there was a line and a half. It was like the corral. People had paid crazy money to take a photo with these actors. And so I get a call from Dylan's mom saying that he's just gotten out of the hospital like the day before. He wants to come to the con. They're bringing him. She's happy that I'm going to be there. They'll get to see me. I said, okay, cool, great, right? Turn around and I look and I'm thinking, I walk over to the guy who's wrangling the whole autograph area. And I said, look, I told him the story about the boy. I said, he and his mom are on. He just got out of the hospital yesterday. Is there any way that he could just meet Henry Cavill? I know he happens to like Superman. I mean, is there any way possible? And he looks at me and says, you're not snowing me. I said, no, I swear to you, this is a kid situation. He says, all right, see me when they get here. He gave me his card. So sure enough, about an hour or so goes by. They show up. We're schmoozing and everything. And the little guy's like, because it takes a lot out of you, right? And so I tell his mom, I said, look, I spoke to this gentleman. Maybe, if he's into it, get him over there. He can at least meet the actor who plays Superman. So she said, oh, really? Okay. And he said, do you want to? And he sort of nodded, but, there's not a lot of enthusiasm there. So I take him over to the gentleman. I said, well, here's the boy I mentioned, blah, 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 blah. And again, you have to envision there's this huge line, multiple line of people, not just like 5 or 10 or 20, talking 100 for it, right? And this man walks the family all past the line, around, and right up to the area where Henry is standing. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wonderful. And I go back to my KCC stuff, right? About an hour later, they come back, and Dylan's sitting up in his stroller now. He's 7, but he's weak. Sitting up in his stroller, and Mom shows me a photograph. I'm thinking, people paid like crazy money, but they got the photograph for free. And Dylan is standing with his hands on his hips like Superman, and Cavill is kneeling next to him, looking at him, right? It's a great shot. And then I found out that one of the reasons they were gone so long is Cavill just kept talking to him. The photographer's going, okay, that's it. Cavill just kept talking to him, just being real. And that's what I'm saying again. When you're real with kids, it means something. It makes a difference. I just wanted to share that story.
No, and I mean, and again, that's a testament to all the things that since I joined you, and then of course we've branched off and done some of our own things as well. I mean, that's the one thing. It's all grown up. But it really is all about the kids. And when you find these celebrities, and I mean, God knows we've met our handful as we've been doing these things, people generally want to do good things for kids.
And that's a blessing, one we should not ignore. Absolutely,
100%. So it's definitely.
I've kept you about, and you know me, Mike. You've known me for years. I can talk.
No, but that is okay. That is okay. But yeah, so like I said, we put all the links down here for anybody that wants to check you out. If you have anything for Ronald McDonald House or want to help out with Kids Comic Con, you can go to the Facebook page, and then you can go to kidscomiccon.com or blackjackadventures.com to learn more about Aaron Day and the adventures that Blackjack has. And certainly
right over here behind me. It's over here. There it is. Right there.
I know. I always get mixed up.
No, wrong way. There we go. Okay, that's
Nolan and Leslie are the experts at this because they know how to do the
yeah, I know, because it's reverse.
Yeah.
It's over my left shoulder, but it looks like it's over my right there. Anyway.
Yeah, and people can go into Amazon.com, type in Alex Simmons, and there's a whole. You have a what's their cartooning book now? Art
of Making Comics. Yes.
Art of Making Comics. Yes. So you can get that.
Everything from concept to distribution.
There's a ton of things from Alex Simmons on Amazon. So check that all out. It's good. So once again, Alex, thank you for joining us tonight.
Just good talking to you.
Yeah, just hold on for when we end. And then for everybody else, tune in. I know Grazia has the name of the cartoon escapes me. He's got a cool guest on Tuesday night, and then Thursday night next week I have Gary K. Wolf, who is the author of Who Censored Roger Rabbit, which inspired the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So definitely check that out.
Dad, I'm just drawn that way.
There you go. I don't know if that was I'll ask him if that was in the book.
Yeah, it would be nice to know. Yeah.
So we will see everybody very soon. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.